To unpack this development and what it means for the broader healthcare community, we're joined by Dr. Saadiq Moolla, Chairperson of Healthcare Workers for Palestine, South Africa. Dr. Moolla, good morning to you and thank you for making time.
Good morning, Asanda, and hello to the listeners.
So, what significance does Sama's decision hold for the global medical community and the broader movement for Palestinian solidarity, specifically at this time?
So, Asanda, over the last 2 years, Israel's attacks in Gaza have included many attacks on the healthcare system. We've seen healthcare workers killed and abducted, and over 1,500 have been killed already. Ambulances have been targeted, hospitals bombed and raided. And this is in contravention of the Geneva Conventions and international law. Healthcare workers around the world have increasingly been speaking up about this, and humanitarian organizations and right groups on the ground, such as Doctors Without Borders, Physicians for Human Rights Israel, they've come out quite strongly calling it a genocide and condemning Israel. And recently, we've also seen other national associations, such as the British Medical Association, the Turkish, they've released quite strongly worded statements, although none have gone as far as SAMA to cut ties with the Israeli Medical Association as well as to call for the suspension from the World Medical Association. So I think it's a watershed moment that an organization has actually taken this step. And it's not an idle threat. SAMA is a member of the World Medical Association, and they can action this resolution by bringing it before the World Medical Association. I think this is one way that we can ensure accountability for what's happening. And I know many in the Palestine solidarity movement, they've been out month after month at protests and events, and they're wondering, is anyone listening? Especially when, despite all our activities, we just keep seeing these devastating images coming out of Gaza. And I think Sama's announcement, it shows that our leaders are listening and we are making a difference.
Can you elaborate on the role of the Israeli Medical Association in what you've called violations of medical ethics and human rights?
I think one of the key problems that we have with the Israeli Medical Association is that they're providing cover for the Israeli state. By and large, they've repeatedly defended the Israeli government in the medical journals, usually by very uncritically just repeating state propaganda. For example, they've often repeated these debunked claims that Hamas is using hospitals for military purposes, which has been used to justify the targeting of healthcare workers and the destruction of hospitals. They've also really only released watered down statements, and they fail to take any sort of action against healthcare workers who violate the principles of medical ethics. For example, a while back, there was a very infamous letter where a group of Israeli doctors, several hundred, um, signed it, and they called for the destruction of Al Shifa Hospital in Gaza. And while they may have released a little statement, they didn't do anything further. They've also not really done anything about doctors who've been present during the torture of prisoners, and this long precedes October 7. So I think Sama is correct in its action in that it's not really in South Africa's interest for us to be partnering with an organization like this.
What do you hope other healthcare and academic institutions in South Africa and internationally will respond following this decision by SAMA?
So, Asana, for the last 2 years, South Africa's healthcare and academic institutions have been far too silent on the genocide that's taking place. They really haven't spoken out enough, as many of our colleagues are being killed there. But it's not just in South Africa, it's an international problem too. And in fact, there was a quote in on the cover of the recent edition of The Lancet, which is one of the leading medical journals in the world, which said that most medical and surgical societies worldwide have remained silent or issued a vague statement about Gaza's health aside. And that staying silent while pretending to be neutral is in effect a form of complicity. And the stance that organizations have taken has contrasted quite sharply with crisis elsewhere, where the health community has been much more vocal. But we are starting to see a change now, and I hope that institutions will study SAMA's resolutions, that they'll issue similar resolutions and statements in support of SAMA, as well as suspending their own ties with their Israeli counterparts. Internationally, I hope also that institutions will support SAMA's call for the suspension of the IMA from the World Medical Association. This will send a powerful message that violation of medical ethics will not be tolerated.
Yeah, Dr. Moolla, thank you so much again for your time and the work that you're doing at Summer.
Thank you for having us on the show, Sandra.
Our pleasure. Dr. Saadiq Moolla is Chairperson of Healthcare Workers for Palestine, South Africa. A lot of groups and countries taking a stand against Israel, you know, and I think it's not just condemnation now that has been happening, it's being advanced to action, which is good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, this has taken time, though. Hey? I mean, this conflict, this is the one of the deadliest in recent decades, but it's been a long-standing one. And for some reason, the Middle East hasn't had the attention that it deserved. But this time around, things have shifted significantly. Even at the beginning of this war, a lot of the major powers were resistant. One by one, slowly but slowly, I think they're getting pressure from their own countries, citizens, to take a stand. And that's what we're starting to see more and more as this story continues to unfold, sadly.
And the development of those 6 South Africans that were detained there in the flotilla, delivering aid, now being